Welcome to all of our public participants, and it's good to be able to do this process. We have attempted to set up another meeting at one point in time, which didn't happen, so it's good today is happening. And this, just so you know, Todd Green, who is the voice that you've been hearing, is the moderator, and you have to have at least one moderator to handle all of the different things going on in these public meetings and with our council meetings. And just a note that although this bylaw that is in question doesn't require a public hearing, we're going to sort of use the framework today of what a regular public hearing would be like. And but first I'm going to pass this over to Lane Johnson to just bring us up to date on where we are today. Thanks, Lane. Oh, Lane's not muted or unmuted.
There we go. So the bylaw that's being considered by council would provide for the establishment of 7 electoral divisions, and with 7 divisions, obviously all of the electoral divisions as they exist now would have to be redrawn completely. One of the biggest reasons for considering this bylaw has been the fact that there has been a significant discrepancy in the population between the existing divisions, and that was confirmed with the completion of the census that was carried out here earlier this year. We had prepared a bylaw, council had given first reading to it, and after that initiated a public consultation process inviting feedback, and also went through the public advertising requirements, only to find out that in a letter that was received yesterday that we probably did not fully comply with all of the requirements for the public advertising process. So with this meeting having already been scheduled, the decision is to go ahead with this session where council would have an opportunity to receive feedback from the public. And then after that, there's some options that council is going to consider or are available for council to consider. One of those options is to provide direction for administration to go through the formal advertising process once again, ensuring that it does meet the full requirements. And after that advertising period has passed, council would then be in a position to proceed with considering second and third reading of a bylaw in a special meeting that would need to take place prior to December 31st of this year. So that's where things are at right now. Council has expressed an interest in going ahead with this 1 o'clock time slot and is wanting to invite the public that wishes to provide comments to express their feelings and share their thoughts and comments with council. The input that was received during the public participation process has all been posted online through the county's website. It has also been included in the agenda package, which is also a public document. So all the letters that were received, all the emails, all of the survey responses have been made available online and in the agenda package for anyone from the public and certainly for council to view. So that information is there. I don't know that there's a need for it to be reviewed directly during this session. Hopefully there's going to be new information come forward, but that's it as far as an overview. And I'll turn it back over to yourself, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Lane. And so I will just move to our public that are present and see if there is someone who wants to start off, because in our public hearings, the way we usually do them are somebody gives a little bit of an overview like Lane just did, and then the public is available to speak. Council will ask questions, and certainly our public are able to ask questions of us as well. So is there someone from the public that would like to speak to start with?
And maybe I'll just, if it's okay to jump in, Molly, there's 28 people on the meeting, so okay. I can't see everybody on the screen to know when to turn the mics on or off. So if we could use that raise the hand feature that we talked about on the bottom of your life-size screen, as well as if anybody's watching on the live stream, if they wanted to type in a question, they can, and I will most certainly let you know when there's a question and read it out to be answered. So on the bottom, you can see if you hover your mouse over, there's a little hand. You can raise your hand, and that'll help Molly call your name, so then we can unmute your mic, if that makes sense.
And Todd, perhaps you can also explain how to do the chat if people don't want to speak. You can send a message.
Yeah, most certainly. Life size is kind of set up, at least the way I see it. On the bottom of your screen is your microphone, your video, the record button, and you raise your hand. And then on the right side of your screen, you'll see at the top where you can go to, sorry, on the right side of your screen, about halfway down, there's two boxes, and if you hover over that, it's chat. And you can type your message in at the bottom. So if anybody's out there that wants to type your message, you should be able to see a message come up.
Wayne?
Hang on, Wayne. Now you can unmute, Wayne. Sorry about that.
No, still can't hear him.
Just unmute yourself, Wayne.
Okay, there we go. Todd, I have none of that on my screen, so I'm wondering if some of our participants have the same thing.
Well,
are they on the full screen?
Actually, that if you hit that button with the 3 dots in it, then something comes up on my screen.
Could I make a suggestion? Because we have in the meeting right now, from the public participation standpoint, we have Lindsay Brown, Kathy Jacobson, I think it's Echo Chandler, Pete Thiessen. We have 2 Harrys, and then we have Dave in the council chambers. So I'm wondering, could we go through one at a time? Would that be a reasonable thing to do?
Well, that might work. Now, I know Dave is in the chambers, so we know his situation as far as making, being able to talk is, he will have help in there for anyone that's finding it problematic. So, Dave, did you wish to say anything? And if so, I believe you have to move to the computer, the front. I'll just make note that Dave has, well, I don't know if, I know that we received a letter from Barbara Stabler, and that's part of our documentation that we've already received. So Dave, if you have other or more things to add, feel free.
Good afternoon. One, I'd want to find out a little bit of backup on this. How many letters of support do you have to go through with this from your actual taxpayers in the county compared to the number of letters of opposition you have from your taxpayers in the county. And I guess the third question would be, as Lane outlined where we're at, the point we're at, I gathered the information from what he said. It's my understanding that basically the council is ready to go forward no matter whether there's opposition or not. Am I correct in that understanding? Or if there's enough information by 1, 100, 1,000, 10,000 or whatever numbers would council need to say, no, we're not going ahead at all, period, due to these 2, 6, 10, 12, 20,000 or whatever the number is. And I guess number 4 question would be is, when the council was first advised that there should be a gag order because the provincial government was in talks with oil companies and whatnot on the subject of taxes and tax reduction and all that kind of stuff. This county there was nothing really said and done. I've got 2 letters from 2 different counties, which I do not own. One I own property and one I do not. One was County of Vulcan and the other one was County of Cypress. They sent me personally a letter outlining the problems and issues that the provincial government and the county and them are having, tax-wise and everything else. And to me, a town hall meeting, this particular thing should have had a face-to-face town hall meeting of some sort, because it does affect each and every taxpayer, period. Now, without any formal consultation thing, like today is a good deal to have somebody come in and say something, because we're going to be the ones paying the bill. The other thing was a petition on this particular item. I would like to see a petition out here at the front door that each and every taxpayer of the county can come in and either vote for it, vote against it, or vote what have you. The survey you did only had 3 options. There should have been 5 options. The 3 you suggest, which was slanted that way, no matter who votes, we're going ahead anyway. Number 4 would give you different eyesight on that. And if nobody agreed to that, you'd have a 5th possibility. None of that was done. Then the petition, you could not only petition on the boundary thing, but you could petition on the Alberta government that if every taxpayer in Alberta wrote down, you can take that 35% and shove it and lose it. We don't want it. We don't need it. If the power or the government in power of the day wants to give away 35, 50, 60% of the taxpayer's base, and without any response from any taxpayer, they should pay it out of their own pocket or out of their own party's pocket. Don't make the law and rule where all of a sudden you and I have to pay that bill. Not only us, but the people who just got laid off have to pay that bill. And I think all of that could have been done on the same in town hall meeting for your boundary change, for your anything you wanted to change or fix or modify or what have you. But none of that was actually, it's my impression, none of that was done. This is the first step in the right direction as far as having each and every taxpayer of the county of Newell have a proper channel to voice their opinion. I came here today because I do not have sound or camera on my computer. And the supposing the decision was already made that, oh, we've made a mistake, as Elaine said earlier, we forgot about the 60 days in our advertising. Well, to me, that should have been decided at this meeting, here, right now, that we're speaking. Not prior to this meeting, because the information, you have information that nobody else has. All that information should have been brought up here today at this meeting, up to and including the reading of all these letters of opposition. Until I go, if I'm interested enough as a taxpayer, I got to go do all this research and do all this stuff and find out, oh, there was 10, 12, 15, 20 people against. There was 0 letters of support for this. Yet council voted in favor of the 0 letters of support to go ahead with whatever they think they want to do. To me, that's disregarding the wishes and worries of any taxpayer in the county. That's my impression, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you for coming in today. And as I said, you're probably in the best place possible for being able to not worry about your computer not working. So good for you. I sort of tried to write down everything that you mentioned, and I sort of will go backwards, and I'll let other staff or councillors also respond. The town halls are pretty much impossible these days with the COVID issues. Before my experience with my GEM residents was, it just so happened that this our proposal came out, and I was able to, we had a community association meeting. There were only 10 people there, and so it was easy to space that out in our hall. And so I was able to speak to the plan that we had, and which was in the newspaper by then and also online. So there was some ability to do things like that. The 35%, I believe you must be referencing the shallow gas that has the income that has been taken from our a lot of our southern Alberta counties, and that is that correct? The 35% you're referencing? I can't hear Dave.
Oh, yeah, 35% is each and every oil company got a 35% tax holiday period, and then over and above that, for lesser producing wells and whatnot, they get a more percentage on top of that.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff rolled in there. The 35% shallow gas initiative actually began a year ago, and it was something the government came up with in a hurry, and they actually didn't take it out of our budget until this year coming. So yes, the oil and gas industry has been lobbying hard and fast. There's no doubt about that. And we have had numerous conversations with the minister and with shallow gas people and our oil people as well. So that is something that we're working on, that is a provincial issue, as you know. The survey and the options, now our staff were the people that put together the maps. We tried to keep politics out of it. And they also were the people that put together the survey. And so, Lane, maybe you can respond in as far as the survey goes.
Now, in putting the survey together, the most important thing that we were wanting to provide was an opportunity for comments to be shared, and the survey was successful in that regard, in that there were many comments that were submitted. The survey could have been as simple as, do you support the proposal to proceed, yes or no? That would have been one question, and that's not reasonable. We tried to put something together that provided an opportunity for the public to consider different options, but most importantly, to provide comments that reflect their opinion on the bylaw and changes that were being considered by council. And in that regard, it was successful. There was 161 responses that were received to the survey. A number of individuals that did participate took the time to share comments in the spaces that were provided. Could it have been done differently? Certainly could have. I don't know that there's ever such a thing as a perfect survey, but we tried to provide an opportunity for meaningful input to be provided.
Thanks, Lane. Kelly Chrisman is our Zano area councillor. Kelly?
Thanks, Madam Reeve. I also wanted to add to that comment that the survey was approved by council, Or I'll speak for myself, it's me speaking. I put a lot of faith into our staff and their expertise that they bring to their positions. And I rely on their field and their training that they have in different areas. So I just wanted to support Lane in the survey and let everybody know that Council did approve the survey as presented. We had conversation and maybe wording edits, but overall we were pleased with the survey. Thanks, Lane. Thanks, Molly.
Thank you, Tracy. Tracy Fife, our Division 5 Councillor, area around Brooks.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, it took me a minute. Am I unmuted? You can hear me? Okay, good. The comment on the survey that I just would like to bring out is that there was 163, I think, totally, and the questions were answered within 3 to 5 days. So the criticism of feedback about time frame, like people, I was so grateful that people actually give us feedback on it. So for me, that was really, really, really good. When I read through the replies, I was very thankful to those people that actually went on and give their answers. So I think that the survey worked well, in my opinion. So again, thank you to staff for putting together that. And you have to start somewhere. And that was our opinion with Council was we have to start somewhere and get some feedback from people. And that's what we're doing now through the survey, is getting feedback from our constituents. So thank you to all of those that actually went on and did the survey.
All right, Dave, you mentioned Cypress and Vulcan, and I'm not sure, I know in Cypress, the paper would be the Medicine Hat News. We have a free newspaper with a Brooks Bulletin that is supposed to be going out to all of our residents within the County of Newell and our other municipalities. So we do rely on that for information. To begin with, this summer, when the province looked at the assessment modifying the review of assessment, their numbers that they came out with were absolutely ridiculous, and there was a lot of stuff put in newspapers that was frightening for people to read about how much rates would go up. We did publish one article that looked at the worst case scenarios, but we also took a more measured approach and submitted other stuff that talked about that in our papers. So we did not send out individual letters. How Council is moving forward is going to be talked about later today. And I think that puts me back to where you started with the letters of support. And as you probably know, the world seems to be always into being more proactive on a negative rather than a supportive role. So in most surveys and many things that we do, we don't always get letters of support. However, we do look at overall that from our own individual constituencies, we have not received a lot of negative feedback. And we realize that in the Div 4 area is where most of the concern is. At least this is my opinion only, that the concern is mainly from that area, and it relates to the fact that their 3 communities are being split up. And so I'd like to hear more about that today. And you know what I would really like to hear about is how that might be solved. And we have heard from people like Holly, who have worked on maps, and from Janet Dovachuk that also worked on the maps, and for that I am grateful. And I've talked enough, so maybe we'll move on if there's someone else ready to speak. Dave, you had a response?
Okay, maybe I'll just start with the survey part. I don't know in the end the result of the survey, whether the comments indicated that there was total support or no support at all. The way the questions and everything was worded before the comment area was clearly, no matter which way you voted, it was straightforward and go, 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 go. It wasn't until you got to the comments section that you could write down, no, I don't think we should go ahead. No, I don't think we should do this. No, we should do something else. As far as communication to each and every ratepayer here, we're on it right now. There is such a thing as an email. I was surprised I physically got a letter from 2 different counties, and I never got a letter from my own county. The newspaper, I don't always get. I don't always pick it up. I don't always whatever. Now it is coming in the mail, but before that, I never actually got the bulletin. So you could have said or done anything you wanted in the newspaper. I would have no knowledge of that at all. So it's unfair to say, well, just because I sent you an email or just because I put an ad in the newspaper or whatever, everybody knows, everybody understands. That is not true by any stretch of the imagination. If I go away for 6 weeks, you can do whatever you want. I have no idea what you're doing. And when I come back, I'm not going to go back 6 weeks and find out what happened. I'll talk to somebody, they might tell me. So I think as far I can help you out there, if you want to do something like this again and you want to talk to your taxpayers, each and every councillor, like I know COVID messed everything up, but to me, the councillor should be coming out to our coffee shops and stuff and then getting the word out. You have advisory groups in the communities, talk to them. They should be having meetings. That's not happening. The councillor talks to the advisory guy. He says, yes, no, maybe. Councillor comes back and says, this is what happened. And everything is based on that. In that whole thing, only one taxpayer has been consulted. And that's not fair. Lost my train of thought. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. We appreciate your participation today. And so we will move on to other questions or other people. Anne-Marie?
Just a short comment before we move on to another ratepayer. What Mr. Stabler is saying is not fair. We as councillors are elected to represent all the people in the county, and I do go to my ratepayers. I do phone them, I email them, I go to the coffee shop, I go to the Egg Society meetings. I do bring up the topics. Now, in my specific area, there were no concerns, and when I encouraged people to do the survey, the majority said, that's fine. So that's what you have to deal with too. So let's be fair.
Ellen?
I thought you couldn't see me, so that's why I was waving. I just want to talk about the survey. I did get quite a bit of feedback from the coffee shop, from speaking to people, emails, texting, and it wasn't just Division 4. I didn't get as much feedback, I'm sure, as Wayne did from Division 4. However, I did get quite a bit of feedback, and it was mostly, hey, we don't agree with these 3 maps. We realize that, they were not against diversifying the population or evening them out across the different divisions. But they said they loved the map that was with 8 divisions in the Brooks Bulletin, which we now know is not allowed by the MGA. However, they were not aware of that. And so I believe Holly and perhaps other people put a map together for 9. We have it in our agenda as well. So just to say, yes, there was quite a bit in my division feedback that most of it was actually the time frame and the shortness of it. I should mention that.
All right. I'm really anxious to get back to our ratepayers if they have questions or something to add, because we as council, of course, can talk anytime.
Molly, just going down the list here, I think Lindsay Brown is the next one down. If, I'll unmute her.
Perfect. Thank you.
Lindsay, you're good to go.
Hello, Lindsay.
Oh, pardon me. She says, no, thank you. Okay, sorry
Come
about
on,
that.
Lindsay.
I don't know Lindsay Brown, but appreciate her taking part. Let's see, we're going down. We have Kathy Jacobson would be next down the list. So I'm going to unmute you, Kathy, and you're good to go. Oh, now you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I was sure hoping to hear from our councillor, Wayne Hamagren. Please, Wayne. You have heard from a lot of us, so I would really like to hear you speak on this, please.
Would you like me to speak now or wait till after you're done?
I'd like you to speak now, please, Wayne.
Okay, I've listened to quite a few of my my ratepayers in my area, and I don't think a whole lot of them are opposed to the fact that we're proposing to go to 7 or even 9 or whatever. What they don't want is their Division 4 split in half, because they feel they are our community and they want to stay together. Another thing that they do not believe that they were given enough time to really look at, have public meetings so they can get their input in and get their questions asked, because a lot of them, this is true, they don't want to go, they don't go online because they're not comfortable with computers and maybe not even making phone calls, but they wouldn't mind sitting in a meeting and hearing what's going on, and maybe they'd give their opinion. I've had quite a few people that are all opposed to it. I looked at the one map that Janet Dovachuk made, and I did the numbers, added them up as much as I could, and that looked fairly good. And I'm just wondering if people would be interested in looking at that one, because that actually keeps our area together, and I don't really believe it disturbs too many people. The numbers aren't as close together as the option 3 is, but they were well within the limits. And basically also that we can get the numbers on the divisions close, but within 5 years they're all over the place again, because people move. So I've been opposing this from the start, because my basic reason is we haven't had enough time, and with COVID, that's another thing that's put limitations on what people can do, and the information and the getting together that needs to be done. This is an extremely important thing that's gonna last for a long time, because we've had 10 division now for a little over 30 years. And I just, another thing is, my point is that things have been okay with 10 divisions and nothing's been a problem. So there's always that adage, why fix something that's not broke? Okay. Yeah. Now, hope, Kathy, that you understand where I'm coming from now.
Yeah. Yes, I thought that the comment section on the survey, I was very impressed with how many people did respond. You never know how people are going to be responding to this because we're isolated. And there's no way to have meetings at this particular time. I was impressed, and I was also surprised at some of the perspective of the people. For example, there was a person who wrote in and said, when we look at ahead, there are 2 Hutterite colonies that are very likely going to divide in the next short period of time. And I'm not sure how they went, at what point they decide that, but it just reminded me that that would significantly change the population numbers in those areas. And that is something that could be looked into, researched ahead of time in preparation for a map that would work for the next however many years. But there was no time to do that. And it was just a reminder to me of the kind of research that could be put into the map making process that was not able to be done. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of Kathy? Ellen?
Yes, I noticed on the letter that we received yesterday late afternoon, that was signed by, among others, by Kathy Jacobson. And it says here that the subject of the letter is meant to be addressed in the public portion of the December 10 meeting and not in the in-camera portion. So my question to you is, Kathy, did you mean that we should be reading the whole letter in this portion?
Excuse me, first of all, after logging on, I thought that this portion was the public portion because we didn't get that to the council, so it could be on the agenda. There was no way to have it addressed, and so that's why we put that on there. When I logged on and I hear the topic of conversation is that there was already discussion this morning about the bylaw, I'm thinking, but wasn't that supposed to happen in this section of the meeting? That's why I wasn't on this morning. It was because I was waiting for it to happen now. And so now people are not aware of what was in that letter, and maybe it could be read if time would allow. There's 28 people on here. A lot of them are going to be ratepayers and might be very interested in hearing what that letter had to say. Would you be able to read it? Would that be okay? Thank you.
This is Molly. I was speaking to this morning. That was our interpretation, I guess, of what you asked for, Kathy. So I apologize. We have a public portion of the meeting, every council meeting at the start. And we don't always go into camera. So anyhow, that was our interpretation of it. And so that's what happened. And so I have no problem with having the letter read now, if that's what you would like.
I think there would be people who would really like to hear that letter. Thank you.
You bet. Are you ready to read it?
I think I've got a copy here. This is regarding the proposed electoral division boundary bylaw, number 1998-20. The letter is to notify you of some of the deficiencies in your approach to handling of the electoral division boundary bylaw. Firstly, the timing of the meetings to vote on the second and third reading of the bylaw does not allow for a petition to be filed within 60 days. In reference to section 231 in brackets 4 of the Municipal Government Act, it requires 60 days to file a petition after the last date on which the proposed bylaw is advertised. The timing of the bylaw does not take into consideration the public's right to petition the bylaw. The MGA stipulates that the advertisement of the bylaw has to include a notice to the public on information of an outline of the procedure to be followed by anyone wishing to file a petition in respect of the proposed bylaw, and that's section 231(1) and section 606.1C. We cannot find information in your notice on procedures for filing a petition in respect to the proposed bylaw. We have checked every section of the County of Newell website where it could be posted. It has not been posted on your social media Facebook page, nor in the radio advertisements, nor is it prominently displayed at the reception desk at the County of Newell Administration Building at a designated area at the front reception counter. The notices of your 2020 electoral division review in the Brooks Bulletin on November 11th and 18th did not contain it either. These notices are deficient, and as a result, the county has not met its requirements of properly advertising this bylaw. The 2020 electoral division review notice directed people to your website for more information. The public information package provided inaccurate information. It states a revision of divisional boundaries is required to ensure the county's population across electoral divisions is consistent with established requirements for proportional representation. In our research, we could find no established requirement for proportional representation for municipalities in legislation. This Electoral Boundaries Commission Act refers to the requirement for effective representation as guaranteed by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but not proportional representation. Is the county relying on provincial and federal requirements that should not apply to municipal districts? Moving the number from 10 to 7 electoral districts is a significant change. The only major focus for the chosen map boundaries was population, and rural representation will be lost. More time was needed to consider other variables and options. Public engagement at town halls did not happen due to the pandemic restrictions that were imposed by government and by the December 31st deadline for passing the bylaw. Your rushed decision was unfair. More consideration should have been given to the effects of the pandemic and the reduced involvement of the public. The ratepayers should have been notified of their right to petition this improperly advertised bylaw, and should they take the opportunity to do so, they would rely on the statutory deadline of 60 days after the last advertisement, which is in section 231(4). This would extend beyond December 31st deadline. It would also be prudent for county residents to advise the Minister of Municipal Affairs if the county intends to proceed with the bylaw despite not complying with the statutory requirements allowing for petitions. We respectfully request that the Council of the County of Newell withdraw this bylaw. And it's signed by Don and Kathy Jacobson, Holly Johnson, Echo Chandler, and Stephen Anderson. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of Kathy? I have a question, Kathy, that has come up a number of times. What does it mean when people say rural representation will be lost?
Well, as being a rural person yourself, what do you think it means, Molly?
Well, in the county of Newell, because we are a rural municipality, I consider us all rural. So, and I mean, the 10 people at the council table presently, or 9, 8, 7, whatever it might be, are elected by rural residents. So it's up to those residents to put those, whatever proportion they want. If they want all 7 to be rural as defined by agriculture, as in currently farming, ranching, beekeeping, or whatever, I guess it could mean a lot of different things, Kathy, I guess. So I'm curious. I know what it means to me, but I'm curious to what it means to you.
Madam Reeve, if I could, please, Kathy, could you please answer Molly's question? Because I would honestly, truly like to hear your answer.
Well, I think that the interests of people living on small acreages that have would have differences in needs other than people who are significantly farther out of town, and they have agricultural focuses. Thank you. I am going to leave this conversation now.
Tracy? And Wayne?
I'm sorry, Kathy, I just have to respond to this because I am an acreage owner. I live in an area that is totally ranching, farming community. And I do not beg to differ that there's a difference from where I'm coming from. So I believe that there's a reason why people move to acreages in the county, because they want to enjoy the lifestyle of ranching and farming. So I just want you to reconsider your thought on that, Kathy, because personally, I don't see that.
Wayne?
Thank you, Molly. I think what a lot of people in the rural area, like rural farmers and stuff like that, they have a fear that their farming operations and the way they do things will be interfered with by people who are moving in to acreages and stuff. And it's quite possible that will happen, but that's life, unfortunately. And I understand that fear, but as a councillor, you have to represent everybody in your community, and we live in a democracy, so everybody has a right to vote. But also, the main thing with Division 4 is we've been one community with Bow City, Rainier, and Scandia for a long time, and they want to stay together. And I know Tracy's gonna object to this, but I really want to say that nobody, when we put this map together, nobody took into the fact that some people want to remain with their neighbors in the same area, and this is something that we should have looked at.
Thank you, Wayne. Wayne, you've been on council this is your 8th year?
Going on 8th year, yeah.
How many complaints have we dealt with regarding acreage owners? You're muted, so we can't hear you. Unmute.
No, we've never had any, and I am not saying that acreage owners are a problem. I'm saying that's a fear out here, and I have. I'm going to stop there.
Thanks, Wayne. I think facts are very important in this discussion. Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd, good to go? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. The comment I want to make is for ratepayers to know that are on the call that 2.6% of our budget comes from agriculture. 2.6%. So we have to keep that in mind and keep that in perspective. Who is paying the bills? Just chew on that one. It's a tough pill to swallow, but we have to be realistic. We are one people. We each have a vote, and democracy has to take place.
So I guess we can move on from what rural means. I could claim that I'm more rural than anybody because I'm further away from Brooks than anyone. But Kathy, before you sign off, I hope you're staying around to listen, but I appreciate the fact that you brought to our attention that the ability to petition out was omitted from the advertising. Obviously a very important thing that was omitted, and we have to own up to that error. I do have a question, though, and I wanted to address it to Lane. In the last paragraph of Kathy's letter, Kathy and Company's letter, the last big paragraph talks about the going beyond the December 31st deadline. And I just want to clarify exactly what that means. Like what is not able to go past the December 31st deadline?
So council needs to pass the bylaw by December 31st if it's going to take effect in 2021. The last date for advertising it, if we go ahead with a new advertising process, is going to be December 23rd. And the public has 60 days after that date to submit the valid petition objecting to the bylaw. And I think that that's the period that they're referring to. What council is in a position to do is to go ahead and consider a motion for second and third reading. The bylaw could possibly pass if that's what council chooses to do, and the public would still have a time after the bylaw has been passed to submit a petition objecting to the bylaw. If a valid petition comes in and is deemed to be valid, then it forces a plebiscite on the bylaw. And the outcome of that plebiscite would determine whether or not the bylaw remains in effect or if it needs to be tossed out. I think that's what they're referring to with that section or with that paragraph.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we have the same interpretation. Todd is keeping me up to date on the fact that Ellen had her hand up, and Tracy has had her hand up a number of times, so I'm going to start with Ellen.
Yes, everyone except myself is frozen on the screen for quite a while already. The question was asked, what does rural mean? Well, oftentimes it was brought up in the comments of the erosion of the agriculture community. Now, I believe that agriculture is vital, not only in our county, but elsewhere as well, all over the world. We're feeding the people in this place. I think it's a privilege to live in this rural county. This is considered a rural county, and to me, as a acreage owner, I think it's a privilege to live here. And so, less and less farmers are farming. What I mean by that is they're getting bigger and they're getting bigger, and they have big operations, so they don't have a lot of voice because the farmers are the land is getting bigger and bigger. So when you have, for example, a very rural area, and you put them together with, for example, castles, or you put them together with Lake Newell Resort, then obviously there's where the people are. So most likely they're going to choose someone to represent them from those urban, if you will, smaller urban areas. So I think this is what I understand from what our residents' feedback was, is, they're worried because they need the representation in order to farm, in order to bring the food to the people. And I think if you go to 5 divisions or 7, that is again more of an erosion. If you look at the maps, if you go to 9, for example, which is the odd number, it is not being eroded. You know what I'm saying? I hope you guys understand what I'm getting at. So this is what the producers, the ranchers, the farmers, that's their biggest worry. And I think all over the world, in Canada especially as well, Alberta is getting there too, then the urban people have the hammer. And this is not what they like, because how can they farm and not have the right representation?
Well, this doesn't need to be a debate about rural today, but again, Alan, I ask you to think back on how much acreage people have interfered while you've been on council. And it's up to our electors to elect who they want to represent them. In my division, as it stood in the past with 10, we have 3 Hutterite colonies. There are people who might say the Hutterites should all have put all those colonies together and have one representative. And I say no. We need to all live together. We all have to work together in this world. And so a councillor is there to represent everyone. And anybody in rural Alberta, once again, I go to that, should understand the importance of agriculture. And if it turns out they become your councillor and you don't like it, then I think it's really important to get what you believe is a rural person at the table then. And that can be done. Tracy, last comment for a while.
Okay, am I unmuted? So my question is just, I guess, out to Kathy or to Wayne. So how I look at it, your community, you're talking that your community is being split. But your community of Rainier will always be the community of Rainier. But have you guys thought that you will have 2 councillors that will represent you? So therefore, you could have more power. So just wanted to throw that question out there. Maybe you haven't thought that. Because your community will still be your community. You just will have different councillors.
Okay, I have Anne-Marie, and is it Greg or Craig also? Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
I'll keep it short because I do want to hear from the ratepayers that signed on to this. It's a little bit about the acreage owner and our rural voice, because the way we are approaching it is just not right, guys. This morning, we approved a subdivision in Rosemary. It's a ranching family that decided to subdivide their acreage off. So as soon as that acreage is subdivided, we have no say who lives there. They're still part of your community. Then the EID, and I'm assuming by a majority vote, sold land around Lake Newell to a developer. The developer builds homes. We as county have no say who lives in those houses. If you look at multi-lot subdivisions on the county map, you'll see names like Johnson Subdivision, Mortensen, Bark, High Ash. They're all names of farmers that we recognize. They're from our region. They all decided to sell a piece of their land for whatever reason. But as soon as other people, outsiders, insiders, retired farmers, beekeepers, whoever moves in there, they are part of our community. They're part of our 7,500 people that we represent. And they're all rural. They all have a right to an equal voice. And it bothers me that people don't think that way.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Todd, oh, there are no raised hands. I thought there was a name I didn't recognize. Is there someone else from the public? And I'm with Anne Marie. We want to hear from the public.
That's all we had for raised hands, Molly. So if we want to go back to the public, going down from Kathy on the list, I believe the guest that we have is, or the name comes up as guest, but that's Echo. So Echo, if you want to unmute yourself. Looks like that person left. Maybe I had that wrong. All right, so going back down to the list, we have Harry with a capital H. Oh, and we have a new person in too. But let's go with Harry with a capital H because we have two Harrys, one with a capital and one without. All right, well, I'm going to shut Harry's mic off, and it looks like we have a guest with their hand up, Molly.
Oh,
so
perfect.
I will ask them to open their mic, and they'll be good to go.
Yes.
Hi, it's Echo Chandler. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. It wasn't my mic, so I'm sorry.
No worries.
I want to just quickly address the rural talk. It has nothing to do with the rural and we're losing our we're all losing representation, going down from 10 to 7. We're all losing. And we don't have to. Why do we have to cut down to 7 if it's not ideal for the area? So that's just my thoughts on the rural debate. We're all rural, but we need our representation. We need the people coming. We need you guys coming out here and seeing what we have out here and being a voice for us. And then that takes me, I have 2 points I want to raise. I don't think you guys are listening to your ratepayers, who you are elected to represent. You are elected to hear us. There has been lots of feedback on the survey and lots of letters in, and there's a lot of negative responses. And let's make a plan that works. Why are we rushing into it? Let's get together and make a plan that is good for our whole area. And we can do that. Let's give it some time. Why do we have to rush into it? I just have another thing to add. Why are we dumping more money into this flawed plan? Okay, so we're admitting the advertisement was done incorrectly. so it has to be done again. So you're going to put more money into that, and it's just been done improperly from the beginning. These maps were put together on strictly numbers. Did you talk to the people and ask what we wanted? No. You just we didn't get an option in Division 4. You didn't come talk to us. Didn't show us those maps. So I'm not happy about that. And another thing, you know, in this tragic economic time in Alberta, why are we throwing money at this? It's flawed. Let's restart and do it right. So I guess I request again the council seriously considers stopping this bylaw, and let's do it correctly from the beginning. Thank you for hearing me, you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you, Echo. Anyone want to respond to Echo? I've already spoken to Echo. Brian DeJong, Division 8, Duchess.
Sorry, Brian, you're way up at the top.
Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned the money part of it. I wasn't really going to get into it, but it does strike me that was one of the reasons that we came up with this, and it goes back to not only this years before, but just what we've dealt with lately. And it was alluded to, you alluded to it somewhat, Dave, in your comments and the assessment model review. So just a few months back, we were faced with the possibility of a distinct possibility of a $10 million cut. That was the reality that the province was telling us to get ready for. And how would we have felt to cut a third of our grading or a half of our grading, half of our gravel program, our snow, and keep 10 councillors? How would we have felt about, how would have our ratepayers felt if we would cut back our weed control and roadside mowing and lay off half of our administration staff, but keep 10 councillors? I think it would have been very upsetting for a lot of people, and rightfully so. This proposal will save over a 4-year period about $500,000, and that's using conservative numbers. So I don't know about anybody out there that says it's not a lot of money, because I've seen that in a bunch of the comments. But to most people in this community, $500,000 is a lot of money over a 4-year period. We talked about, I've heard comments also about communities, and Wayne specifically talked about the separation of Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City. And if it wasn't said before, it's got to be said. The people in the community make up that community. The councillor that represents you, or that divisional line that separates one division from another's, it's so irrelevant. It's you, the people, that make your community. In my area, I never had one person that phoned me. I solicited a few people, and I never had one person that phoned me. I had calls from outside my division, and they were very respectful and were very good calls. I appreciate every one of them, and I thank those people that made them. I think it's important to get that, and this participation, the public participation program or role that we played here, I think did its job. We got the feedback we wanted. And I guess when I looked at some of the data that was put together, it struck me as quite profound that between the letters and the feedback in the survey, both positive and negative, was about 2% of our population. Let that sink in. 2 to 3% of our population. So that doesn't mean that not everybody did not agree with what was suggested. I'm not saying that, but when you have the overwhelming majority that don't file a comment or fill out a survey, I think it is very telling, and that does give us some direction as far as council. It gives me direction as far as council as to how to look upon that feedback. And I also, just in closing, I want to thank the people that participated in this today, because it is helpful to me as a councillor when it comes to making the decisions. I think your comments are all valid. We might not agree, but at the same time, having the feedback is very important. So thank you.
Todd, was there someone else on that list that you have?
The only other guest we have right now is Harry with a small h. So we opened the floor for Harry with a big H, and I'll open the mic up for Harry with a small h. I don't know who is who and which is which, but if they want to chat, that would be great. I'll tell you what, I'll do you one better. I'll open them both up, and then if either Harry has a comment. I'm just going to double check the list here. Molly, Kathy, Echo, Lindsay. And I think that's all we have for public participants. But if I think we're going to continue with this feed, and everybody is welcome on this feed. So if there is a question, they could raise their hand, right? At this portion?
I'm not sure, actually. I thought we were going back to our council meeting if we had received all the public participation, but maybe I am not right on that. Lane?
I think either option is open to you. The one thought we had was that if there were a number of members from the public in on this one, you would want to revert back to the council one where there is some ability to limit the conversation after council has concluded this part of the meeting. But given the limited numbers that are here, and it seems like not too many are wanting to chip in when the opportunity is extended, you could certainly just continue on where you are right now, or take a small recess break and reconvene in the regular council portal.
So, Lane, if we stay in this format, then we would talk about what we're going to do moving forward as far as the bylaw goes. We wouldn't be referring to our regular council meeting.
This section is going to be included as just part of the regular council meeting. It's going to be one continuous recorded file that will be posted on the website. So I think you're certainly in a position to just carry on and treat this as an extension of your council meeting if that's what you choose to do.
Okay. Well, I should, I guess, ask council not just to make a decision here. Is council fine with that? Is there any problem doing that? Getting thumbs up from people? All right. Well, I'll just make sure there's no one else from the public wishing to say anything more right now.
Yeah, and just really good timing. Pete Thiessen was able to join us again. He had to leave for an appointment, but he's back now. And being that he would be the last public member, maybe I'll just open up his mic and give him an opportunity if he so wishes.
Thank you. That'd be great. Hello, Pete, if you wish. Sometimes people like to listen, but not speak.
And Lane alluded to it, but these meetings are all live, but they're also recorded and they're put on the website after, I believe. So people can watch again if they like. So Pete's not talking, so I will, I guess, close his mic. And if he wants to chat, he can after in the chat box.
Thank you, Todd. You've done a great job. Hard to keep track of everyone. All right, so I will ask council to refer back to the first page of our meeting agenda, which takes us to item 7.1. And we will turn it back to Lane.
Thank you. So there's clearly some decisions and direction that council needs to provide at this point. If council is intending to move forward with a process that would provide for second and third reading, what we would require at this point is direction to proceed through a new advertising process during the next 2 weeks. And then the next decision that would be required, if that's the direction that's provided, is for council to set a date for a special meeting where the discussion on the bylaw itself and possible amendments to it would be considered during that special meeting. So those are the two matters that require direction from council.
All right, council, hands up. Wayne.
Lane, on if any amendments would be made, say when we have the next meeting, and we could be looking at alternate maps. Is that at that time?
Correct. Council is in a position to change or to make changes to the maps or to the map that was attached as Schedule A to the bylaw when it received first reading at any time before it receives second or third reading. So during the same meeting, if we are provided with direction to amend Schedule A for second reading, before it receives third reading, council could say, well, let's change it yet again. That opportunity is there.
So that opportunity has to be exercised at that point, or it will be lost. And so councillors need to be aware of that. If you have changes that can be made, they need to be submitted or let us look at them sooner than later for a fulsome discussion.
So I need to see the language in this. You know, can you either articulate it or tell us? Because I'm prepared to move forward on your recommendation of re-advertising. I just want to make sure the language that I'm moving, or if a motion is required, then I need to know what that language is so we get it correct. I don't want this to be challenged.
Lane?
I think it would be just a matter of council member so-and-so moved that administration proceed with re-advertising for bylaw 1998-20 during the weeks of December 14th and 21st. And that would be the extent of the motion that's required for the re-advertising.
Clarence?
The thing that I'd like to have a look at is, can we rejig it with 7 districts in some way that we keep Div 4 intact? Plus something else, of course, because it has to have a few extra. Can we have a look at that? Because that's all I've heard. And I don't agree with the fact that I think it splits your community. I don't, but these people believe it does. And so I think it behooves us to have a look at it, and if we can do it and not have any other major disruptions, I think it behooves us to try.
And I totally support that notion, Clarence. The one map that came in, of course, when you try to keep one division together, ultimately it impacts, it's a difficult domino effect. And so I'm surprised that there haven't been more solutions offered with that than the one map that came in from Janet. And I haven't looked a great deal at that, but perhaps we as a council, or I'm not sure. Perhaps Wayne as a councillor in Div 4 could be looking at something, or maybe he has. Wayne.
Yeah, I looked at Janet's 7 map that she made up, and the numbers aren't even, but like I said before, within a year, 2 years, even 2 weeks, the numbers would be different. And they're probably different now even since the census. But it works, and it keeps Div 4 and keeps the people in Div 4, I think, happy. I probably see less turmoil in the county with that map than others. So I kind of support, if we could go with that one, I think my people could support it and I can support it. So.
Ellen and Kelly.
Yes, a question for staff. So when it gets re-advertised in the newspaper, can for example, the map that has 9 divisions in it, that puts most communities together, and it also has more representation, which was a huge complaint or consideration in all our comments. So we all have the alternative 9 divisions option. Would that be an option to put that one attached to the bylaw that's being advertised? Perhaps a question for Lane?
The advertisement is limited to Bylaw 1998-20 as it received first reading initially. So it's going to include, or the advertising will be for the bylaw as it was when council gave it first reading. If there's consideration that council wants to give to changing Schedule A and making changes to it, that would need to take place during the special meeting after the advertising requirement has already been fulfilled.
Thank you for the info.
Somebody else had a hand up. Kelly.
Madam Reeve, I think we have a motion on the table made by Brian to advertise. Maybe you want to call the question on that.
Thank you for the reminder, bringing me back. I sort of missed that. Brian, could you restate that?
Well, it's a lot of discussions happened since it. So, but I think Lane had said it, that it's just a matter of re-advertising it for the dates that you had recommended. And I believe, correct me, do I have to have that in the motion, the actual dates? I have the 16th and the 23rd. Is that correct?
Those are the dates that we would be advertising for. Really, the intent of the motion is to ensure that Bylaw 1998-20 has been advertised in accordance with Section 606 of the Municipal Government Act.
Okay. Would it be appropriate at this time to ask for that it's advertised on the front page? And I mean the entire front page?
Are you wanting me to answer that?
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask that. I mean, I would like to make the motion as you recommended for those dates to re-advertise this bylaw. I'm not sure if that's something that I can just leave to the county administration's discretion. That's what I would prefer. But if you need special permission to go beyond a regular advertisement, I'd be prepared to include that in this motion.
I've got some hands up now. Anne Marie, Wayne, and Tracy.
Okay, I have two. One is a statement, one is a question. The front page, that makes sense because then we have control of the message. Clear, advertising, clear. The second one is when we talk about re-advertising, I'm wondering if it's continuing advertising or is it re-advertising? Just kind of a word.
The Section 606 requirement in the Municipal Government Act is a very specific advertisement that lists what the public need to be aware of regarding their right to petition against the bylaw. That advertisement is going to be very specific wording. Another advertisement can be placed next to it that provides additional commentary or content or messages that council wants to ensure is communicated. But the thing that we have been caught on is not having the absolute necessary wording in the Section 606 requirement of the Municipal Government Act. That was omitted in the advertising that was done.
Wayne and Tracy.
As to what Brian said, he just put that in his motion that he wants it advertised on the front page, and I think that should be sufficient enough, shouldn't it, Lane?
We can certainly do that. I would anticipate that in addition to, are you wanting a full page notice, or is it just going to make sure that the actual advertisement itself, be it a quarter page, appears on the front of the newspaper? I would need some clarification on what council's expectations are on that.
Brian, were you thinking it was your suggestion?
Okay, so my motion does not include direction on how the job that administration has to do. I wanted to know if you needed that. I don't think you need that. I think the motion is clearly just to re-advertise the bylaw, period. If there is budget available to purchase the entire front page, that's what I would prefer, but I am leaving it up to our very capable administration. I just want to reiterate that I think it's important we control the message. We've lost that control the last time around, and I'd like to change that.
Tracy.
So a little bit of insight. So as far as the front page going out for this next week, it's already been taken. We can do something on page 2 or 3 as far as advertising. But the following week, we can put something on the front page. So just to kind of give you the heads up on that. So we'll have to, we can still do something this week, and maybe we can try to get it in as close as to the front as possible, page 2 or page 3. So we have until tomorrow at noon to get something in. But for this week, because it's to do with Christmas something, we can't have the front page. So just want to share that. I think it's still something that we should pursue, but we won't have the front page for this week.
I'm a little bit torn. To me, the front page of the paper should bring news at this time of year, particularly this year, some perhaps happy news. So I think with this particular ad, it is just to make sure that the conditions of the Municipal Government Act are met. And so where it is in the paper is, I don't think that important personally. Kelly.
I'm just going to pull you back again, Madam Reeve. We have a motion on the table to advertise as per requirements of the MGA. So I suggest we vote on that motion and then talk about particulars.
Thank you. Every council needs a whip. It's your job today. Let's get to the motion, and I will call the question. Is there anybody who is unclear as to what the motion is? It is to publish for the next 2 weeks an advertisement regarding our bylaw and the fact that the petitioning information that usually is attached to the bottom of a bylaw. Ellen, question?
Yes, is that the exact wording that it's going to be, or someone has the exact wording that's going to be in the bylaw, please?
I think Lane is going to write it out, or maybe Ariana has it. Lane.
Okay, moved by Councillor DeYoung that administration proceed with re-advertising bylaw 1998-20 in accordance with section 606 of the Municipal Government Act.
Call the question. All in, Clarence, did you have a, no? All in favor? Opposed? No one is opposed. The motion is carried. Clarence.
Okay, get off the phone, you Clarence.
I think he's just gesturing to somebody. Okay. So that is all we need to do today, besides set up the meetings, times, Lane. So we have to set up a meeting after the 2 weeks of advertising. And what was your suggested date, Lane?
It'll end up being any time between, or any time from December 29th on. So you've got 3 days to choose from. Make it a New Year's Eve virtual party.
I like the 29th. Let's stay away from New Year's.
Well, it'll be a pretty quiet New Year's for everybody, so it might be exciting to get together virtually, but how about the 29th? Tracy has a problem with it? 29th?
Well, I was just gonna suggest let's go the 30th. That gives our ratepayers one more day to submit any concerns.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there will be concerns submitted at this point. It's more to do the regulations. So
Like
the 29th is okay, Tracy? 29th, okay? Who doesn't have the 29th available? These days, you got to have a pretty good story about what you're going to be doing if you're not available for a virtual meeting. All right, the 29th, at what time, Lane?
We're obviously at council's beck and call, so we'll work around your schedule.
Well, 10 o'clock, as usual.
That's
Kelly,
what
did you have a...
I wanted to make the motion. December
Go ahead.
29th at 10 o'clock, please.
Okay, got it. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? No one is opposed. So Lane, does that cover off our item 7.1 today?
For the time being, yes.
Thank you. So moving on with the rest of our meeting takes us back to item 9.7, which is a request for letter of support from the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Association. And Lane, again, you handled this one.
So council is certainly well aware of what the Sewa organization is proposing. They have confirmed support for it in the past. I guess what we're looking for is just confirmation that a letter of support will be provided and approved by council for the grant they are hoping to submit to the Emissions Reduction Alberta program for the shovel-ready funding that is available.
Lionel, did you want to make that motion? Seeing as you're quite involved with, or is as involved as anybody? Yes? Okay, Lionel will make that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And another letter of support was well, that's later. Okay, there's an update on the EID broadband for a letter of support also. So we need a motion for that. Or Kevin, do you want to speak to that? I think that would be good.
Yes, thanks, Madam Reeve. So I was instructed to talk to the EID about putting in a grant application under the rural broadband fund, and I had a meeting with Ivan and Ronan, and they're going to look at putting 2 applications in. I tried to encourage them to just do 1 application for the big program because of my experience with grants is a lot of times you won't get 2 approvals in a pool, but on the contrary side of that, with 1 application, it might make it too big too, as well, because they're looking at $2 million to $15 million funding allocations. So what they've asked for is that County Council send a letter of support for 2 letters of support, one for phase 1, Duchess, Rosemary, and One Tree areas, which they can access under the rapid stream. And then under the big stream, phase 2 would include the remainder of the county of Newell. Those applications need to be in. First one needs to be in by January 15th, and the second one needs to be in by February 15th.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Questions from council or motions? Brian?
But just to clarify, it doesn't. I read through this, and it doesn't look like they're asking for money, just a letter of support, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'll make that motion to support this letter, this request for support.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? No one is opposed. Thank you. Motion is passed. And the joint municipal meeting is December 16th, and Ariana is asking us if we have items for the agenda. What time of day is that, Ariana?
I have 1:30 in my day timer, Molly.
Thanks, Kelly. Ariana must be sleeping. So unlike her.
And I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself, but you got to it before I did. Yes, December 16th at 1:30 on Life Size.
Thanks, Ariana. I just wanted it to be stuck in my brain from hearing it out loud. 1:30 on Life Size, so it'll all be set up. We are hosting that, correct? Do you have items for the agenda already?
I lost connection to my email, but the City of Brooks did send a list of them, and I'll forward that afterwards.
No rush. Do we have any items today? Kelly.
I wonder if we couldn't have a toast to all municipalities. It's hopeful that we'll have our ICFs signed by the end of this year. I think that's something to mention, to celebrate, possibly. Just
yes. If in fact it happens, perfect. Your own drink. All right. If you come up with any items, you please let Ariana know, and she will add them to the agenda, because that is in fact next Wednesday. There's nothing new on the assessment model review that I'm aware of, unless somebody else has something. Councillor payment sheets. Tracy?
Motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve with changes made by Tracy. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment, and we do have one over 350,000 for our shoulder pulls. QB is going to move for approval. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And the payment register for council, there are 3 different registers presented. Were there any questions? All right, we need a motion for acceptance. Anne Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Request for functions of council. Municipal services business. And Mark.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Mark.
Everybody's got my monthly report. I don't know how much time council wants to spend on it, considering everything you've been involved in today, but some of the highlights, I guess, operations-wise, winter maintenance on roads. Grader operators are also doing the vegetative maintenance program now, weather permitting. Truck drivers, winter snow and ice control, and stockpiling as well, which we've gotten a significant amount of stockpiling done so far this year. We wrapped up pretty well every program project that we had for the season, with the exception of one drainage project where culvert replacements were approximately 50% complete, so that'll be carried forward to 2021. Any of you that have been to Brooks lately, the 15th Avenue, 2nd Street West, Highway 873 intersection, I don't know if the traffic control light standards are up yet. Last time I went through a couple days ago, the 2 that were on site were not up, but that is getting close. We are hoping to be done by the 15th of December from the latest that I know of, but I'm not sure 100% if that's going to happen. We've done the STIP applications for 2 bridge files on One Tree Road, as well as the One Tree Road overlay that is planned for 2021. If we get full award in that for those 3 projects, we could receive up to $2.02 million, so fingers crossed. Broadband committee met Thursday, November 9th. Key discussion included a bulletin received from Alberta Justice and the Solicitor General. That bulletin was dated July 29th, 2020. And as of January 1st, 2021, there are amendments to eliminate select commercial carrier provincial permits, which means some of our revenue is going to go down based on configurations of vehicles that used to require permits, but I don't anticipate anything too significant. And with that, we discussed that if we were not going to mirror what the Alberta government was putting into place, the requirement or the onus was on the county that every single entrance point into Newell, we would have to erect signs saying what our restrictions were, not just paved roads, but rural gravel roads as well. Committee was not in favor of that, so we opted and agreed to mirror the province, keep our doors open to the economy and those configurations that they've been testing for a number of years. Some of those include the sleeper cabs, toter homes, wide base single tires, and differences in steering axles. No concerns from engineering perspective or operations perspective on that matter. And yeah, we've been doing a bunch of other tendering and stuff with work. And I'll just throw out a little note right now. I know it's an agenda item after this one, but the door-to-door solid waste collection for the hamlet of Tilley. Unfortunately, I've encountered some challenges with that, where upon legal review, one of the bids of 3 I am not capable of accepting as it contains an error on its face. And the other 2 bids were well over the budget that we had set with council in the interim budget approval process. So I'm acting on legal advice from that, and we'll be proceeding forward in a new direction, I guess, but wanted to bring that to your attention. And in the interim, I'll ensure that services are not delayed or suspended in the interim. We'll keep things going for the village of Tilley. Interesting note on the permit activity report. You can see that our permits remain 50% below last year's numbers, which is also 50% below the 3-year average. It is not picking up for activity in our region. It is holding steady at 50% of what we're used to. If there are any questions of council, I will gladly respond to what I can.
Questions? Not seeing any, Mark. So we will require a motion to accept municipal reports. Tracy moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And we have a tender award. So Jeff must be hanging around too. There he is. Hi, Jeff.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everybody's face today. In front of you, you guys have an RFD for the award of bridge file replacement, extension, and some other minor work along One Tree Road. 2020 budget saw us in a position to take a look at the condition of the road and identify a surfacing strategy to extend its useful life. some of the key points that we wanted to keep in place were remaining a non-ban status, so ensuring the road structure was satisfactory for us to be able to recommend that. We wanted to maximize our driving width, and obviously, as always, we wanted to keep in mind the safety of the public and people traveling along that roadway. As part of the study, obviously, we inspect bridge files and CSPs underneath of our pavement structures before we go and put a hard surface on them, in an effort to get any preventative maintenance work done prior to that surfacing work, so we don't have to come back afterwards, dig up new asphalt, create dips and bumps and humps along the driving surface. So along One Tree Road, we did identify quite a number of bridge file replacements and maintenance issues that were recommended through that report. And we did design and tender them out. Those improvements include bridge file 70290, which is the large diameter ellipse pipe, which is on One Tree Road, just east of the A&E road. That bridge file has been on our inspection and maintenance list, and we had planned to deal with it at the time of the One Tree overlay. The floor of that pipe is completely corroded, so it is native ground under there. It has failed. We know about it, and we were waiting to replace it in conjunction with this overlay. So that pipe will be excavated and replaced with new pipes. The detour will be in place for an estimated 12 days based on the tender submission. But it is a relatively short detour, and it probably won't have a major effect on most people because there are a number of alternate routes to use to get in and out of town and around that area. The next two pipes that were identified, one was bridge file 71786, and the next one is a non-bridge file sized culvert. Roughly just a little bit better than a quarter of a mile north of that, around the second speed bend as you go north on Range Road 140. Both of these pipes have been noted to be in reasonable shape, except we have started to notice some surface failures in the road over the last little while. So upon further inspection of these pipes, we've noted separation in the joints of some of the pipes and some section loss in the bridge file sized culvert. Due to the nature of these pipes and the amount of cover over top of the pipes before the road surface, we recommended and we analyzed different options, and we landed on actually boring new pipes adjacent to them. And grouting and filling these old pipes. I think everybody's aware, everybody that has been on council for some time, we have had lots of discussions in the past about excavation, importing non-native material to backfill pipes, and the difference in elevation on the driving surface that those non-native versus native materials present at times when the frost sets in, when the frost comes out of the ground. So because of that, because of the amount of cover over these pipes, and the analysis of the costs being quite comparable, we decided to tender both of these pipes out to be bored under the road as opposed to open excavation. Bridge files, the three other bridge files up north on the road were identified as not having any substantial failures, and that the useful life should be able to last the life of this overlay. So they weren't slated for replacement. However, we did take a look. Again, I mentioned, one of our main considering factors is the safety of the motoring public. And we took a look at what we could do around these files. Alberta Transportation dictates a clear zone on rural paved highways. And basically what that is an area for a vehicle or a motorist to leave the road where they wouldn't flip their vehicle, they wouldn't make contact with any object that would cause harm to the vehicle or anything threatening to that driver. So currently how we've mitigated some of those controls around bridge files is we have installed guardrail, or most recently on some of the provincial jobs, we've installed high tension cable barrier systems that I believe everybody's probably seen out and about. with both of these, preventative safety measures come some other obstacles, and the main one with guardrails is drifting snow across these locations. I think we can all have experience with driving down roads, and all of a sudden, for about a 20-meter stretch, we catch a snow drift on perfectly clean, dry pavement, and we know that's created by objects catching the snow with the wind blowing it across the road. While the HTCB cables mitigate this a little bit, they come with their own obstacles, and some of those obstacles are plows and plow trucks have a tendency to clip those posts, and they need to be repaired. We are currently not set up because we don't own any of those HTCB barriers to repair and replace those. So while they do mitigate some snow drifting, they have the issues with the plows and the operations around them. And they also don't reduce the clear zone, because those barrier systems are designed to break away and actually allow a vehicle to leave the road. So we couldn't install these here because the end of the pipe would still be within that clear zone with the amount of distance that cable barrier system would allow a traveling vehicle to travel into the ditch. We did some culvert extensions up on Highway 876 at the north end to facilitate this exact same thing, and I'm really, really pleased with how they worked out. It's a lot cleaner. It's going to be better for maintenance, and I think all in all, it's going to provide a better overall product. On this tender, ISL, Engineering and Land Services, did the report, and they've also done the tender. We received bids from 7 contractors that you can see in your package there, and the lowest bid was received by a local contractor, Brooks Asphalt, an aggregate in the amount of $773,155. Today, I am just looking for a recommendation, or putting forth a recommendation and looking for a motion from council to award that contract to Brooks Asphalt. And beyond this, we really hope to get this culvert work done in the January-February time before the waters turn back on. We do have the tender ready to release for the overlay of One Tree Road. However, I think we're going to hold off on that until the first part of January and get through this Christmas season here. And I think we still will receive the best possible pricing and give the contractors some time not to be worrying about this through the holidays. So that's my long-winded spiel, and I'm available for any questions.
Brian.
Good job on this. I was just curious about the engineering, the 102,000. Is that necessary on all our projects? Or I guess I just trying to think like an old farmer that, companies like Brooks Asphalt, they put in so many of these. The fact that you need an engineer, they probably can do it with their eyes closed. But I respectfully look forward to your answer. I know that as an engineer, you probably side on that side, but just curious as to your thoughts on that part of it. It seems like a big part of the budget.
No, that's a really great question. Thanks for that. Just to be clear, 5 of these pipes identified here are bridge file size culvert, which means that the cumulative capacity of them is equal or greater than a 1,500 millimeter, 1.5 meter diameter culvert passing under a road. As we know in the past, all of these structures are owned by Alberta Transportation and managed by the County of Newell, construction, repairs, so on and so forth. So for bridge-sized culverts, the province does have a requirement, a number of requirements that they do require a certain degree and amount of engineering from a registered firm accredited to perform engineering services. Some of the discussion that we've had in the past is that these engineering fees can really range depending on the environmental considerations, the stream course, the water course that the pipe lays along, how big that pipe is, if it's a navigable water course or not. Typically on a project like this with minimal environmental, and so on and so forth. I think we can expect to see engineering fees in the range of that 8 to 12% of the total project budget. There was a little bit more extensive environmental on the first two bridge files passing here, the large bridge file that we're drilling, as well as the first one past the A&E corner there. That being said, I do definitely hear the concerns and everything else, and we are working on minimizing the degree and amount of money we spend on the engineering side of things for those culverts that don't meet this criteria and aren't owned by Alberta Transportation. Not to say that we aren't taking our due care and attention in designing and putting good thought process into what needs to be done, but we are trying to be very responsible with professional services dollars.
Anne-Marie?
Jeff, when we first started talking about resurfacing this One Tree Road, there was mention of maybe buying some land so you can get rid of those corners, those curves. Is that off the table?
Yeah, so we looked at the actually the first speed curve outside of Brooks, the speed curve right at Deer Run Estates and Sagebrush Estates there. We have heard in the past some concerns with regards to the corner, people leaving the road surface, so on and so forth. It is a very interesting corner. There is an access to the EID canal going straight through. So I do believe when people are not paying attention, they may look up from their phone or whatever it may be and have to make a split-second decision, and they end up in a private landowner's backyard there. I did approach a number of times the landowner who owns the property on the northwest corner there to secure land, to acquire land. I discussed a number of times a number of different with them. It sounded like it was going to be a done deal and fairly well. However, it digressed, and we were unable to acquire that land to improve that. We do hope to do some modifications to that corner and do what we can within the existing right of way to better the rideability and post the maximum possible speed that we can around that corner. I've also opened up or sent information to the EID regarding their need and necessity for that access to the EID canal, because I do think if that access was cut off and we could, install delineators or chevrons around there, that would really cut down on the amount of people leaving the road at that. But we've also dropped the speed there from 80 down to 50 down to 30 to help drivers. So long story, short answer is no, we haven't been able to acquire that land, but we are working on other factors to mitigate the concerns.
Hubie.
Well, thanks for the report, Jeff. I'm just ready to make the motion to award the tender to Brooks Asphalt.
Which is quite a low tender compared to some of the others. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for your work earlier, too, in the chamber. Tender award, Tilley door-to-door solid waste collection.
Yeah, I already touched base with you there, Council, so I don't think there's anything further to present, but I'll be acting off of legal guidance moving forward.
Sounds good. Item 11, post-agenda items was an in-camera item, but that we'll get to. I received a phone call, actually, and then a letter of support requested from the Alberta Elks Association, who are the local Brooks Elks, who are hoping to host the Provincial Association or their conference in June 2nd to the 6th, and they wanted a letter of support for their hosting. No money asked or anything like that, and they're just hoping that they'll really be able to have a conference. So thought we should get a motion for that, keeping it all legal. Who would like to make that? Tracy will. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And Lane also had a request for a letter of support for Greengate Power Corporation, also known as the Lathom Solar Project, and it was an interesting, little bit different and more complicated asks than the Elks. Lane.
There we go. So yes, we have received, are you able to hear? I can't hear myself on it. Anyhow, we have received this request, and ideally it would be absolutely wonderful if we could provide a letter of support for all projects that are proposed to take place within the County of Newell. A couple of things to consider on this one, I guess I've identified in the report, and I'm not sure just what to suggest to council as to how to respond to this one. The one concern is that if the fund that they're wanting to tap into is going to try and sprinkle projects around the province, the question that we've got to resolve is whether or not the SAWA project is indeed a higher priority, or if you're prepared to support other projects that might be coming in as well under this particular program. While Greengate has certainly come forward and requested a letter of support, it's also possible that a letter of support might be required or requested from other companies as well that are pursuing similar projects. And so those are things that council consideration should be given to in making a decision as to how to respond to this particular request. I'll leave it to council as to what your decision is going to be.
I think that's a fairly measured approach. Lane, Brian.
Well, just because we support one doesn't mean we can't support a second one. At least that's what my thoughts are. I don't. It's not a case of a priority of one's better than another. I think that anybody that whether it's a SAWA or this one, it's not costing us any money to be involved in it, right? Or is there something I'm missing?
No, there is no cost. It's just a question of whether or not the funding agencies are going to look at two applications and the county's supporting both of them. Which one might they be inclined to consider above the other? And I don't know if you want to place greater support for the SAWA project, or if it's just first come, first serve. Those are questions that need to be considered.
Other thoughts? Wayne?
I think I have no problem with supporting both of them. I hope we get them both. It'll be good for the county. So if both projects go ahead and we help assist them in getting their funding, I'm all for it.
So you guys don't think it would interfere with the SAWA? And Lionel's got his hand up here. Maybe he knows all the answers.
No, I certainly don't, Madam Reeve. I do have a little bit of a problem with the county supporting private industry, though. Because where does that stop and start? I think the county needs to support SAWA because it is a municipal endeavor. But a private company, I'm not so sure that we should be. That's where I'm at with that.
Other thoughts? No other thoughts? Well, Anne-Marie.
When I first saw the request for proposal, I thought, oh, cool, another company. Then I saw Lane's concerns. I thought, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then when I read your letter, I thought, well, that's okay, because we show support, but we say that there is no commitment by the county. They're not going to get development permits. So I'm okay with sending that letter.
All right, so is that a motion then that we are going to support both of them? Is that what I'm hearing? Or only one? Wayne.
I'll make the motion that we send a letter for both groups.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Hold your hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like it's passed. Opposed? Okay, that motion is passed for both letters of support for both. Thank you, Lane. Minibus monthly report, upcoming community events. I think we've covered everything except the post agenda in camera. So if I could get Hubie, gonna move us in? Or do you
the train this Saturday, I think people can still donate to the food bank, right?
Oh, yes.
Through.
Always. Yeah. It's a live broadcast of some, is it this Saturday? It's a live broadcast anyhow, but you have to virtual musicians. Holiday train. So we need a motion to move in camera. Ellen moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.